Welcome back to Tabletop Assault. I'm Ross, and today I'm going to continue my segments on looking back at forces within the 8th edition of Warhammer 40k. Today I'm going to have a look at Necrons, a force that I've played quite a lot of, done a tactical talk on them as well, and one that's going to see a massive hopefully a massive change within 9th edition to see changes to their rules, but certainly a big difference in the amount of units they can field. So when it comes to Necrons, how I'm going to do this, I'm going to do have a look at 7th, how they worked on there, have a look at their universal rules, and then have a look at their roster to see what stuff works, what stuff doesn't, what needs to be addressed. So let's have a look at Necrons. So Necrons, when you're looking at codex, stuff you need the codex, obviously, and then you might need, if you're so inclined, to take Imperial Armor's Xenos, though that will probably be changing as I think Forge World's getting a big update. And that's kind of it that they got. Obviously you've got your chapter approved, but everyone needed that. Necrons didn't get much in terms of books, etc. You had Vigilus, which had a bunch of forces in it, then Vigilus Ablaze was primarily just chaos. Then we've had all Psychic Awakenings, but because Necrons are the last ones, and quite frankly, I think they're, I'm speculating here, and when this goes out I might be completely corrected. I imagine it's going to come out after 9th edition box, and then it's going to have all the rules for the new stuff. I think that's probably going to happen, but I could be wrong there. Really, we didn't have a Psychic Awakening for Necrons at all because it was just so late. So it'll be interesting to see what format they go for when it is eventually released. So I'm going to have a quick look at Necrons when they were in 7th edition. One thing to compare really between Necrons 7th edition compared to, 8th edition, is in 7th edition they were really darn good. Why were they good? Well, their weaponry was good because Goss had a couple of effects and stuff in it, but the main thing to think about, and it's one word, Decurion, if that's how you say it. Decurion? Yeah. It's been over 3 years. Reanimation protocol works very differently then. The rules in general worked very differently. Reanimation basically gave you a 5-up feel no pain, and when you're shot, whether it be by a bolter or a last cannon on a Necron warrior, it only suffered 1 wound, so you only ever needed to make one roll on it, versus multiple damage now, that if you have a feel no pain or disgustingly resilient equivalent, you would have to roll for every one of the damage rolls. But in 7th it was just, if you're hit by a last cannon on a warrior, it would just be, you take your whatever save you had beforehand and feel no pain, you take that, and if you did it, you lived. Also, another thing as well is the AP worked very differently in that one as well. Say we take an Immortal with 3-up save, they would usually get that 3-up save unless they were hit by a plasma cannon or a last cannon. Armor saves didn't deteriorate, it was just once you got to a certain amount it went straight through your armor. And not many things went straight through 3 unless it was as I said, plasma or last cannon, basically the heavier hard hitting weapons. So what that created is that in a lot of cases, if you took Immortals, you were going to get your 3-up save and then a 5-up ignore most of the time. Even worse, the Decurion, or however it's said, it was a collection of formations that gave you a bunch of extra rules, but the main one was that it gave you a 4-up reanimation. This meant that after your armor invul save, you had a 50-50 chance to still ignore the wound. This made it so difficult to move Necrons compared to other stuff. It just created such a tough faction. They hit pretty hard, but the point is they were almost impossible to remove from the field. That may sound excellent, but it was a really tough challenge to play against them. There was other things, for instance, if you were toughness 4 and hit by something that was strength 8 or higher, usually it would get through your feel no pains. I don't think you were allowed to take it if you're hit by something like that. But in Necron's case it was only -1, so if it was normal reanimation it would be, you'd just get a 6-up save, or if you're a Decurion it would just be 5, but you'd be hitting warriors last cannons to get that, and that's not ideal. It just made them so damn hard. All this made is Necrons a very enduring faction, but possibly so enduring by the end of it you may still have your Necrons on the field, but your opponent may have already left because they may have spent 3 turns and killed 10 warriors if they were lucky. I mean that with no exaggeration. Necrons were really hard to move in 7th edition. it made them good, but when Decurion especially came out, I feel it really did imbalance the game, but a lot of formations kind of did that. Universal rules. Necrons have two main rules that should be considered their universal rule. And these are Reanimation Protocol and Living Metal, both designed with the idea of making Necrons a lot more enduring and difficult to bring down. However, they both have one major weakness, and that just about every one of your opponents will do unless they want to lose the game. And we should all know this by now, but wiping out, a Necron unit that you're most scared of, wipe out destroyers, wipe out whatever, and you just don't even need to think about, Reanimation Protocol or Living Metal or anything, because once they're dead, they're gone. Living Metal, firstly, this allows unit to recover wounds at the start of turn. Is fine. Not great, does the job fine. Really, it's to support single unit models like your HQs and your vehicles, because they won't get Reanimation Protocols. But Reanimation Protocol, now this is a different matter. So we spoke about it earlier in 7th edition, and that was stupidly good when Decurion, or however it's said. This became a no-brainer, made Necrons almost immortal in the battlefield, versus now, where yeah, it can be really good, bring back models at the start of your turn, and you can do it over and over again. However, its main weakness is just, wiping out that unit just makes it all too easy to negate it. Just once they're wiped out, who cares? Simply put, in 7th, it was arguably far too good. In 8th, it's just not good, or even close to considering at all. Do I have a solution? No, I don't. Due to how AP works in this edition, if you took away, if you took how it worked in 7th and applied it, now it'd be a lot less useful because armor saves are reduced. So you wouldn't be having your 3-up, 5-up saves anymore, which is really good. If you're hit by AP stuff, which Space Marines put out loads of, then you may be at like 5-up, 5-up, or 6-up, 5-up if you're Necron Warriors. And maybe that way it would feel more relevant, but it would also feel very boring. As it would be very, very similar to, Disgustingly Resilient for Death Guard and stuff. And this is supposed to be, coming back from the dead. It just wouldn't feel right. How do we balance this? I just don't know, but it needs to be able to take into effect in some way once a unit is wiped. I'm open to hearing suggestions of this, but more importantly, GW, they need to hear people's ideas, though considering Necrons are one of the first factions, I'm sure they've already got the rule the way they want it. Having these key mechanics be so easily countered hurts playing as Necrons and has made playing them far less enjoyable. Maybe you have to bring a unit back from dead with, sixes on its destruction, so when it gets destroyed, put down a token similar to how Gene Stealer cults work in terms of their deep striking. Once a unit's destroyed, put the token down. Units come back on a normal roll, however it cannot move in the movement phase, charge in the charge phase, and suffer -1 to hit, or hit in 6s, in the following Necron turn. That means that a unit can come back from dead, but it will not nearly be as effective in the next turn, and your opponent needs to think about dealing with it again, because obviously in the following afterwards it may be better again. The thing about reanimation is that we have it now, we've had it in the past where it is so good, too good arguably, that we lose friends. And now we have it so bad that in most games you don't even think about it. If anything needs to change in the Necron Codex, it is this. As this is instrumental in the way is, to feel how you feel playing Necrons. You want to reanimate, you want to feel like an Endless Legion when you're playing them. So it just is something that's a real hard task. Trying to find the balance, should be the overall aim for 9th, to get reanimation to feel right, where it's not overpowered, but it's also not feeling like something that's just not worth considering. Dynasty traits, this is actually one of the strongest points I feel in the Necron Codex, in my mind. Sure, there is one or two that could be reworked, might need to be rethought up, but generally not bad. You have Mithrit for up close, but risky shooting, and can shred through armour. Nihilaka, which is a strange one, is a lot of Necron weaponry are kind of short-ranged, or mid to short-ranged, but Doomsday Ark absolutely loves it. Novuk is if you're more inclined to combat, which is a personal favourite. Sutek, I feel needs reworked. I generally do not like the advance in fire mechanic. It doesn't work for Black Legion, it's not really something that's really good for Necrons, certainly for Ghost weapons it just doesn't feel right. Sure, it helps Necrons' weakness in being slow, but personally never been a fan of it. And the ignore heavy rule is a bit of a waste. Most Necron stuff kind of ignore it already. Best on the Doom Scythe. Hopefully Necron Warriors get some kind of heavy weapon, that would help, though looking from stuff shown, that's not looking likely. Nifrik, yep, you gotta go, you know, if you want to go fast, but you won't hurt your opponent, which in turn will help, you know. It doesn't matter if you're sacrificing all your damage potential to go fast, if you just get killed. Maybe combine this with Sutek Advance Row and you're on to a winner, so, you know, you can advance, go fast, but you also still get to use your rapid fire weapons, assault weapons and stuff like that. That might actually work pretty well. Warlord Traits, this has been a really bad area in my mind. I can see where they were going with it. There is a few areas that make your character harder to bring down for endurance and harder to hit, command point return, etc, etc. The generic ones are overall kind of meh. Necron characters don't particularly hit hard in combat, so combat ones are almost always wasted. And reroll charge aura pretty bad in general. Immortal Pride, if you're going Horde Necron Warriors to give you the best choice for reanimation, is like almost mandatory, so you don't suffer, you know, your opponent takes out 15 warriors and like, cool, spend 2 command points to keep them there, otherwise they're going to be off the field. A few people do like the farming command point one, which I think is on a 5 plus you get a command point if you spend it. However, Necrons in this edition sometimes actually had difficulty getting many command points. So say if you only had 5 command points, maybe 6, and you take this one, then you're likely to get back 2 command points. And that doesn't feel too nice, like it's not ideal, and you don't get to roll that often. You'd only actually get 6 opportunities to roll. If you roll badly, then kind of wasted. I just feel for that one, it's not going to be so useful. Looking into 9th, I think a lot of these may work better though. The Scorfek, I can't pronounce it, Lord, basically the Destroyer Lord with the scuttling legs and the axe and everything, should hopefully do really well in combat. I know it does have a gun, but I'm hoping it's more combat orientated. Hopefully faster to get there and make combat endurance more appealing. Also just listening to player base, you know, in general, which ones did they use in 8th, which ones they didn't. The ones they didn't, replace them. Stratagems, ooh, a difficult one this. So all in, there is 22 universal traits and 5 Dynasty specific ones. Because Necrons did not take part in Vigilus, and let's face it, didn't get a Psychic Awakening, they had a limited amount of stratagems overall for codexes, is an average. But with no expansion in this edition, really left them quite limited. In terms of their usefulness, I counted the ones I knew I used in, you know, the majority of games I played, the ones I went, yeah, that's the ones always in my head, and there's 6 of them. Solar Pulse, now many people might disagree, you know, cover and stuff. I did find it useful in times, there were situations where it was really good. Damage Control Override, Repair Subroutines, Quantum Deflection, Extermination Protocols, of course, and Pharaoh's Will. I found these for my playstyle very useful, some may disagree. Extermination Protocols with Destroyers is amazing, almost criminal at 1 command point, maybe just reroll wounds or something like that. Overall, you know, overall Necrons don't have the strongest stratagems in general, so having a super solid one is good, but is it criminally good? I have Necron players fight me on this, and I do play Necrons a lot, but I just recognise its usefulness, similar to Vets of the Long War, is really good, but to reroll all hits and all wounds on a certain unit, and a damaging one at that, is good. And and if Necrons didn't have that, then, or Destroyers especially, it'd be hard to justify, but it is very good for 1 command point. I'm going to mention the ones I would replace, because I feel that's kind of more important than anything else. One thing to note, I think nearly all the Reanimation Protocol ones and all the Kattan ones should be redone, just because Reanimation Protocols need to be redone in general, and that will affect stratagems. I love Kattans, but the stratagems, I just don't like them. They seem to be for emergency use and don't add much, and random versus enhancement. I just think they are They don't add much. They can maybe help in a situation, but probably they're not going to. Self-destruct, it's cheap. I think that should be, it's cheap, but it's just not fun. Kill a unit and 2+ you cause D3 mortal wounds. Handy to maybe finish off a wounded character, but you may only cause 1 mortal wound. Compare that to Extermination Protocol, which is 1 command point, same as it, which should cause countless more wounds. It's very situational and does not cause as much damage. Stratagems that are more difficult to pull off, to me, should offer more, because getting your scarabs in combat versus just shooting destroyers is harder, except for the fact your opponent will try and blow destroyers straight off the field. Maybe it should offer like a disruption thing, everything within 6 inches, it doesn't need to be in combat, just everything within 6 inches suffers a -1 tit until the next movement phase or something. That to me would be a lot more helpful. Then people would fear scabs, like, I really don't want them to get close to my gun line, because if, you know, one of them explodes, or say D3 have to explode to do this, it'll affect everything in an area. And that to me would be really good. That to me would make, you know, self-destruct for scabs a lot more appealing. Entropic Strike, Necron characters do not do well in combat, period. Most weapons do 2 damage, only the Void Scythe does 3, and even then it's -1 tit, so you miss 1/3 of the time anyway. You may also fail to wound. If this, you know, if this was more damage like Void's Invul and it does double damage, then yeah, I could see use for it. Maybe a little bit too good then, but maybe not. Maybe it should be too good. You know, it should be treated as like an execution. So if this hits you, it is gonna hurt something awful. Also, it's only available on an Overlord with a Void Scythe, you know, because the War Scythe is not so good. I suppose Command Barge can take the Relic where it replaces the War Scythe and it can do 3 damage. But overall, I think it just needs to be thought up a little bit better. And finally, Gravitic Singularity. Yep, I guess this should just be done with the reanimation and Kattan part, because the obelisk needs addressed from the ground up. It is one of the most useless sort of models in the game at the moment. Its rules just do not work well. In my tactical talk on obelisk, I basically I did an intro on it, and then I was like, explained it, and then I was like, look, it's so bad, I'm just going to make suggestions of rules, because I can't justify it in tactical talk. I was like, it just needs to be redone, and I gave my ideas on where it needs to be done. So if you're interested in that, because a lot of people talk about obelisk, have a look at that video. It's going to probably in a few weeks time be completely redundant, but it's a very good conversation to talk about obelisk and how bad it is and what should be done to replace it, but still keep it thematic. That's actually, you know, that's actually a lot of stratagems that need to be addressed, but this is because either the rule or the unit simply doesn't work, and I think they need to be redone to be made relevant, and there's a few redundant stratagems in there that just need to be rethought. Relics, again, plenty of options here, but without a current combat character that works super well, kinda not working. Veil of Darkness is always an easy option because it allows you to get a jail-free card along with an infantry squad. There is endurance ones, one for Destroyer Lord, one for Catacomb Command Barge and Mind, etc, etc. Orb of Eternity needs to be redone with Resurrection Protocol. The Gauntlet of Conflagration simply needs to be better, it's terrible. Overall, I wouldn't mind maybe a buff relic or 2 that helps units around them. I know the Orb of Eternity was that, but we also discussed Resurrection Protocol and where it currently is. One that maybe chooses at the start of the turn to boost Tesla or boost Goss, you know, like a adaptive weapon protocol. Imagine, you know, maybe it'd be on Cryptex, maybe it wouldn't. Imagine select to improve a unit of Gauss or Tesla. Gauss improvement would be unmodified rolls of hit to wound, causing mortal wounds in addition to damage, or if too good, but I disagree, I think it's fine. 6 hit automatically wounds. Tesla effect works on 4+ rather than 6+. Add on My Will Be Done and drown your opponent in shots. These may be too good, as I said, but part of me thinks that relics should be really good. You know, sometimes look at relics, I'm like, oh, do I really care? To me, sometimes relics need to be really good. I think in the past they used to be really good. Now they're just something to consider. So I'd really like to sort of buff your shooting from something around you. I think that'd be really good. Kattan Powers, overall I like these. They are useful for certain armies and situations. They have an improved version for the Transcendent Kattan, and I just really like how it works. I just wish there was maybe another table, one that improves your forces and another one that maybe hampered your opponent, just to reflect the tricky ways Catan work. For instance, the Nightbringer would be the damage ones, but the Deceiver would be ones that hinder your opponent. Maybe choosing from one table gives a buff, add one to your dice roll or something. Maybe, this is a step too far. Overall, I think this, as a damage table, I think it's fine, it does well. I just want more options to sort of customize your Catan and make it feel more like just different options. I know that there's apparently going to be different Catans. I saw a picture of like a huge one or a model, we're guessing it's a Catan. So I think they do know that Catans need to be a little bit different. Summary of this part. So the main thing is Resurrection Protocol. It does not work well at the moment. A major rule that is just so easily ignored is just not ideal, and they need to recognise that. I do understand that it's a really difficult rule to balance. We've had it too good and we've had it really bad. Now it's just trying to get that bit in the middle. If I was to say anything, maybe give it the 5+, ignore wounds. I just find that would be really dull, but it would work. Or something where it works from beyond the grave. I gave my suggestion on that, but at the moment it doesn't work. And then trying to make sure it's not too good is also essential. Unless you only play Necrons, in which case you want it to be stupid. Give them a 2-up invul, everyone. Why not? No, I'm only joking. It's trying to find that balance, because having you just win games like there's no tomorrow. Some people think that's good. I don't want to play a force and just go, right, I've already won. Looking at the roster, special characters. This is an area I find to be a major problem for Necrons now. Necron overlords and such have personalities, and from reading in the codex, they have some varied personalities. The problem is that 4 of them are Sutek, and 2 of them might as well just be one unit. 2 are independent, and not bad, all things considered. And then we have Trazian, who I believe is Nihilaka, but don't quote me on that. The kleptomaniac master of the 40k universe, and also one of the worst character units there is in the game, I think. Which is a shame, because lore-wise, probably one of the best characters in the lore, for humor reasons anyway, which is odd on a Necron. However, please, more than anything, give us a Novuk Dynasty Necron character. Their trait is called Awakened by Murder, and boy, do I want a Necron to reflect that. Maybe one for Mithric and Nephric as well, but just a Novuk one that's all about the combat, one that's about not even martial prowess, it's just about tearing their opponent apart. I play Novuk, if you can't tell. Also, Silent King is coming back, but because he wasn't in 8th, or very unlikely to get rules in 8th edition, so I'm not going to count him. See, if he gets like rules the week before 9th, it's not going to count. HQ, a few options here. Kattan Command Barge, which in a way is just a fast Overlord with an extra weapon. Overlord, cheaper than a Command Barge if you're going to be static. Lord is Necron Lieutenant. Cryptic, super useful. I'm more sold on the Chronometron for my playstyle, but I love the Cloak model more, so I tend to use the Cloak one but keep his Chronometron one, just it's a cool model. Overall, this is actually pretty poor. My usual go-to would be either a Kattan Command Barge or an Overlord, never both. Both serve sort of the same purpose with a +1 tip with My Will Be Done, or Wave of Command. But I like the Kattan Command Barge for mobility, and its Gauss can sometimes helps. Cryptic, if you are going to take a Warrior Blob, it's almost mandatory, and it does roll fairly well. I'm thankful that, so overall in 8th this doesn't feel so nice, but I'm thankful there seems to be a big expansion in 9th. Scorfec Lord, I really need to learn how to pronounce this, which is designed by the looks of it to be more aggressive, which is badly needed. Maybe a unit that helps the army move would also be good. I see plenty of new units for Necrons because they are slow to march, so something like that would also be very good. Troop choices, 2 choices here for Necron Warriors and Immortals. And they do fill slightly different purpose. Necron Warriors if you want to blob up usually, and Immortals for maybe multiple small units. Though a 10-man squad can be quite deadly with the right buffs as well. I think Necron Warriors do need a heavy weapon or something alternative, and from what I've seen so far, that might not happen. Even worse, it might not be any good at all, but we'll see as the rules come out. You know, we've seen some stuff already, and anyway, I won't go into that. Maybe a combat unit would be good as well. Maybe I'm just being biased because I play combat Necrons, but we do love the artwork of the Endless Legions coming out of portals and stuff, coming out of your monoliths, etc. So maybe that just wouldn't fit very, very well. Maybe just make Flayed Ones troops. Maybe Novak Dynasty make them troops, that might be helpful. But, don't know. It's a difficult one. Just like one that, Necrons, if they just had like a combat one, it would just add to troops, but maybe it doesn't make sense. Troops never need to be the biggest selection anyway. Overall, I've been okay with Necrons how they are, but they just need a heavy weapon in their Necron warriors, and that would help justify Sutek. Elite choices, 7 choices to choose from here. 2 of them are special shards of Kattan. Lich Guards, Death Marks, Flayed Ones, and Triarch Praetorians. Oh, and Triarch Stalker as well. So I actually like the variety here. They don't all serve the same purpose. But there does seem to be, you know, just a bit of a change in restructuring needs to happen here. Kattan shards, I'm a bit confused why the Transcendent is heavy and these ones are elite, but alright. Either way, they're very old models. The, what do you call them? The Death one and the Deceiver. Oh, how can I forget his name? That's terrible of me. Oh goodness, that's going to throw me off. Either way, they're very, very old units. Nightbringer, my goodness. And very, very iconic, so I feel that they need to be updated, like, really well. That would be really, really good. Both are important to Necrons with high quality models, especially what we've been getting recently. That'd be really, really nice. Not essential, but I feel those models, more than anything, would need to be addressed. Lich Guards and Praetorians badly need an invul or something. The shield does fine for Lich Guards, but it's really costly and reduces their damage exponentially. If you take them with War Scythes, then you better not walk them up because they will not survive making it to combat. The shield does help them a lot, but to me, the stratagem which improves invul and bounces mortal wounds back, the mortal wound to me should just be the rule for the shields, because you've got Storm Shields are given a 3-up invul, and then this Dispersion Shield is 4-up invul. Just give them the 4-up invul and bounce back. It's what happened in 7th, and I feel it should just happen again. Yep. That'd be good to give them protection from your opponent, and also so worry about damage coming back. Praetorians with no protection are tricky. They are both pricey units, and without protection or delivery system, die quickly, and to be honest, they don't actually hurt very much either. They're just 1 damage as well, and yeah, they shoot okay, they do a bit in combat, but they're just not that great. They're fast, but just not that great. Flayed Ones, maybe give them a Feel No Pain, might make them a bit more relevant, but for small unit Deepstrikers, they're actually not bad. They're a good harassing unit, so I think that's okay. The Stalker and Death Marks, I think, are perfect for the purpose of what they do. The Stalker especially is actually really, really nice. Fast Attack, usually one of the worst sections in other codexes, but actually my favourite in the whole of Necrons codex. 4 choices here, and honestly all are strong. Canoptic Race, fast damaging combat, though you really need to be Novak to get the most out of them. And they've got good endurance, where they've got plenty of wounds, the mighty 3-up invul. As long as you're Novak, then you will get an effect from them. You'll be able to float across the field, and your opponent will have to deal with them. But they have to think carefully, because they are 3-up invul. Generally a quite good harass unit, and as long as you're Novak, they can also cause damage. Canoptic Scarabs, they are just your easy, cheap way, swarm unit across the field, good way to get an Outrider attachment. Tomb Blades, I don't use these guys a lot, but wish I kind of did. Extremely fast, medium toughness, options for weapons and upgrades as needed, and they fly. Ultimately, I would go Ghost Blaster, expensive, but they do rapid fire, and this hurts a bunch of units. And you can also get there quite easily. Tesla stuff can be done by Immortals from a distance, and My Will Be Done will help them more. Also, possibly, you know, cheeky move you can do a red. I don't know if you're allowed to do this. I'm pretty sure you can. Give half them Shield Veins and half them Shadow Loom, and that way, depending on where you're being shot with, you can sort of choose what's going to shoot you. So, say if you're shot by something with high AP, you'll take the invul save, and then all the models of the, you know, one of the models dies there. And then if you then get hit by something that is low AP but loads of shots, then maybe take the improved armor save one. Now, make sure you do finish off the model that took wounded first and then onto him. As far as I know, that is a strategy you can do, and I actually quite like it. If I did that, I'd probably use them more often. Your opponent might hate for it because it'll slow down the game exponentially as you go, right, I'm going to take on this model, it's got that, because you can't roll more than you did before. I'm pretty sure it can be done, but it's going to slow down the game a lot. Destroyers, incredible unit with the right stratagem, like super good. But if your opponent sees them, expect them to be destroyed. Put them in cover with cryptic nearby, squad of 6. It will attract a huge amount of firepower, so that 5-up invul may help. And if your opponent fails to wipe them out, then that 4-up reanimate is going to feel fantastic. Expensive to take a squad of 6, but better because the high chance of being able to reanimate and the stratagem working well. And if you make them really hard to target, they're going to soak up a lot of fire, and that's just away from other forces as well. Basically, going to use them, go all in, because I think if you take them in small squads, they'll just be eliminated bit by bit. One of my favourite sections of this codex, bar none. Heavy support choice. Usually the heavy support section is a strong contender for the best in most codexes, and for Necrons this should be easy, they've got some cool stuff. However, rules for certain units have made them incredibly mixed bag. The Monolith is an iconic unit for 40k, is largely a relic of its former glory. Much like the Land Raider being part heavy transport, is almost a tax and just does not make it work. Something needs to be done to bring these units back. Annihilation Barge, although cheap Tesla is almost better always on Immortals due to buffs, this one kind of needs to think about different ways to use it. I think it just needs a bit more buffs, a bit more weight, it's going to work. Heavy Destroyers, fine at their reduced points, I still prefer Destroyers, but Heavy Destroyers just didn't prove as useful, so they decided to slash the points of them. They're now cheaper than Destroyers, which is odd, but it's the way it goes. Canoptic Spiders, again, needs a rework. Supposed to be support, but a bit too expensive for that role, and Scarabs don't need the support, and the ignoring, I think they allow you to sort of disrupt Psyker. I think it needs to take more of a note from the Sisters of Battle disrupt Psyker. I think they cause either -1 to all casts or doubles cause perils in an aura ability. I think that's better than a single deny the witch roll. Transcendent Kattan, this could be a lot of fun at the moment, it's fine. And a few interesting options, again with the different powers of Kattans and ways to customize it. I'd just like there to be a little bit more customization. That would just be nice, and it'd feel a little bit different. Each shard would feel utterly different to another one, and I think that'd be quite good. Lastly, Doomsday Ark, the best option, heavy support bar none, and works as it needs to, long range support, and it does it well. Recently got one in the past year, and say it's proved it's worth in almost every game. Dedicated transport choice, one choice, Ghost Ark, and ultimately that is fine. I don't know if I would want another option, as I love the look of the Ghost Ark itself. And it's tough, it's got quantum shielding, I think it's just fine. I don't think you really need to add anything else. If you want to, fine, but address everything else in the codex first. Flyers, the Doom Scythe is an interesting option of destruction, similar to Doomsday Ark, as you get mobility, but accuracy and a bit more destruction goes down. Night Scythe Transport version is also good. It's David's favourite way to deploy units, take multiple, then drop them in for rapid fire, pretty good. Maybe one that is more horde destruction, a flyer that's designed to do a beam and just maybe it hits a unit, then it hits another unit within 6 inches. It's like a line beam, and that would be really good, and it's designed to sort of hurt multiple units. But again, I think this area is fine. Lord of War, going to guess this is where we're going to see the Sand King, and thank goodness, because at the moment this section is one of the worst in the game. The Obelisk is another unit that just needs reworked from the ground up. In my review for this, as I said, I didn't even talk about it so much, I just said this is the thing that needs to be addressed. And the Tesseract Vault is actually awesome, it works quite well. They put up the points because it was a little bit too good. I think again it needs a bit of customization with Kattan Powers, but overall I think it's kind of nice. So yeah, that's it when it comes to Necrons, looking at the universal rules, looking at their roster. We're seeing a lot of things being added to Necrons coming into 9th, which is fine. So far, if you're looking at that weapon, there's a couple of people not too happy. I think we just need to see the lot. If you're playing combat Necrons, I think you might be actually quite happy with the combat destroyers and also the Scorpec Lord. Hopefully that's going to be really good. But we've also got the Silent King, so there's a lot of cool things coming, which is nice on the model side and the roster side. But the universal rules and the reanimation protocol, more than anything, needs to be addressed. I just feel, to me, if you're going to do it, go with, like, I know some people who are against like the markers and stuff. I know it's placed predominantly in Apocalypse. I'm fine with it, and Doomsday Ark use it. Give them markers. Unit dies, put it down. It's, you know, a marker that represents Immortals or something. Marker represents Necron Warriors, one for Lich Guards. And that unit does come back, they reanimate maybe on 6s, and then they can't do much as they're reanimating because they're completely destroyed. They can't move, they can't really shoot very well, etc, etc. And I don't know if it'll unbalance the game. It might not. It's a real tricky rule to balance, and I feel is the one thing about Necrons that needs to be addressed is reanimation just needs to feel right, which I don't think it felt right in 7th edition, but it was also too good. So in a gameplay wise, if you were going to use it, you were going to work well, but it just felt very boring. Versus the one they've currently got, which actually feels really good. It starts your turn, people are coming back, etc. But it's just so easily countered that it doesn't work well. So it's all about that balance. For me, it's nice to have all these new things. The Silent King, it's really cool. But if you don't address the main things, the sort of foundations of the Codex, these universal rules, it's not going to sit well with Necron players. And I feel that is going to be key. If you can make them happy, but overbalanced, with reanimation protocol, you're going to have a lot of Necron fans who are going to be happy, and hopefully a lot of future Necron players. So thanks again. Please comment, share, like and subscribe. Very interested to hear what people think of Necrons, how they did in 8th, what they're hoping in the 9th. I know there has been things, you know, previewed and people are not happy about them. I get it. Let's be hopeful on it. Let's concentrate. If they nail reanimation protocols, I think Necrons are going to be in a great place. So please comment, share what you think would fix them. How would you fix Obelisk? Let me know on that part. Let's not focus on some of the stuff I know people aren't been happy on so far. Let's concentrate on what we think would be better. Let us know. Check us out on social media, where we're going to be doing upcoming projects. I am currently working a heck amount of AdMech, trying to bring up their numbers a wee bit, because I was sitting on models for ages, and I thought that'd be really good. I just love the paint scheme, which I'm really happy about. And then check us out on Patreon, where you can help support the channel, bring you more content, because we absolutely love doing so. So thanks again, and we'll see you on our Tabletop Assault Battle Report.